Good morning and welcome to Frank's School. This cat always wants to mess with my camera, so I don't know how long he'll stay here with me. Anyway, this is the 128th day of the 6th year, first video. Hydra leads to das Volk. Das Volk. I could have written the folk, but it's different. I think it's a little different. I mean, das Volk. This is German, of course, and it means the folk. A whole big concept. I mean, das Volkswagen. I've always been confused how to pronounce that. Volkswagen, I guess. Anyway, das Volk. And how to explain it? Well, there are folk songs, there's folk music, there's folk costume, there's folk dance, folk architecture. It's the way normal, general people in a given area do things. They are das Volk. Folk tales, their stories, folk cuisine. That's funny though, a word cuisine with folk. Folk food, maybe you should say. Anyway, in my life, there's a certain time, maybe now probably, that I feel like the folk came to the rescue from Hydra at Hydra's worst, with all these terms and all these questions and all these ideas. Where do you turn? Well, take a look at what the folk have done, given that situation. Back when I'm going to start erasing, I think. Back when I was doing this handbook, Homestead Engineer's Handbook. I worked so hard on producing this monstrous handbook that would guide someone to engineer a homestead. That was back in the 1970s, early 1970s. And I finally realized that, well, the idea of engineering a homestead was really pointless or silly or whatever, or couldn't be done. In the flush of availability of the power of computers with computer chips, it seemed like you could analyze all possibilities. You could do it very logically and rationally. It didn't pan out, not for me and not for anybody else either, I don't think. And yet the folk for thousands of years have worked on those issues about how should you build a pen for cows? How should you build a barn? Should your house and barn be separate or should they be under the same roof? Things like that. Folk, the world is covered with solutions made by the folk. So in a sense, folk came to the rescue for me when I realized, hey, the thing to do was take a look at what the folk had been doing. And you know, I say I have vernacular here. Vernacular architecture is what's usually used when you talk about the way folk build. All right, now this is just stuff that I want to clean up here. I threw it up here. When I was talking about my grandfather and culture shock, well, that was my father's father. My mother's father didn't live out of his 60s. I think he was about 67 when he died. Aesop's mice, why I've got that up there is because I thought about the city mouse and the country mouse. You know, here's Aesop lived 500 BC, if he ever lived at all. And there's that story about how traumatic it was for the city mouse to go into the country, or the country mouse to go into the city. That was culture shock. That's what he was talking about there. Poisoned wood. I have that there because I mentioned I'm watching these cats. They're liable to knock plants off. I said I don't even care very much for electric fences. Well, I don't so much care the wire and the electricity. That's okay. I mean, it simplifies a line instead of having a complex ecosystem where the fence is. You've got this line and you can use your weed whacker under it so it looks like a golf course. That's what people seem to want. What I object to so much, though, is the poisoned wood. That's what I call it, this green wood that you've got to drill these holes, put these posts in, make the corners braced so you can draw tension on there and all that. A lot of work and all that, but I can't bring myself to use wood that has been poisoned. You can't even, the green stuff, you're not even supposed to burn the stuff, or certainly not cook over it. And you know, if you take that away, take poisoned wood away from fence builders, now what are they going to do? They'll go into a bit of culture shock. Words is Vanity Fair. I put that there because I suggested that this Barcelona group and what I've found about degrowth could be like Vanity Fair. too sweet to leave, too interesting to leave. Well, words can be like that as well. And before I've used so many words, and in just with Hydra, but I'm not always going to do so. If you take words away, you get past that. Well, then you have to see things without the terms, without the words. I'll explain about that more later. Okay, now back to this matter. So there I am. I'm not equipped with the culture I need. I'm in culture shock because I've accepted other things as being true from the normal. I don't have the support of a culture. So what do? How do I learn? Well, Frank School. And it's not exactly what I'm doing right here, because this is the word part. This is the academic part, in a way, with Hydra. But the Camp Ranch campus, what this farm, abandoned village, ranch, whatever you want to call it, what it is becoming, this is a place where I can learn and I can teach. Who do I learn from? Well, I'm hoping for many more. But it doesn't matter. If I'm not learning from somebody, I can be teaching or myself or learning from experience or whatever. But I think about immigrants. There's such a big issue about these. Trump is so worried about these immigrants coming in from Mexico and Europe. It's a real issue. Immigrants. The thing is, those immigrants, not all of them, sadly, most of them probably not, but some of those immigrants, they know stuff about a different culture. They know how to do things. Among them are the admirable Crichtons, if you can remember that I mentioned that play, that actually know things. There's a man here in Dutch Corner. He's brought out, to my view, some of the ugliness of my neighbor's prejudice against, he's from El Salvador, I think, and with his family, and he has some of those skills. He's so unique in a sense, but he's got the support of the Mennonite church around him to some extent. But he had to butcher. Well, he hadn't really butchered before, but I remembered that. He said where he was, people butchered on the ground. They would skin the animal, lay the skin out, and do the butchering on that skin, which was clean. Well, here guys hoist them with a tractor and a bucket, and they hoist them up and they do the butchering with it hanging. But see, he knew, he just hadn't done it, but he'd seen it, and he had the need for it. I really should probably talk to him. Where else can I learn? Well, open air museums. And all my life, my mother introduced me to them at the first, and I've been to 4 fabulous ones in Europe, which you can see. I'll just give you the names. I'll get confused. Anyway, open air museums. They're Gifhorn, Detmold, that wonderful one. Anyway, and then one in Holland Street. They're elsewhere in Frank's School. You could see it for sure. And now another thing, you don't have to learn alone. I keep harping really probably on this word alone, because so much of what I have done and what I am doing, I am alone. I have a very little bit of help, but that should not be. Ideally, you're not alone. You have others that are learning as well, and ideally, you actually need a village. When Hillary Clinton said it takes a village to raise a child, well, it takes a village for a lot more than that. All right, I have evolution of cultures here, because as you learn and as some things stay and you pass them on and you teach, a culture evolves. But it takes time, given time. And evolution of life is a similar way. People say, well, with global warming and all these species that are going to go extinct, there'll be other species that appear. Yes, there will, but it takes time. One of the fastest species or kinds of life to evolve is bacteria and viruses, as people know so well. That evolution goes on so fast, it's a constant threat to humanity. But when they talk about the extinction of species and stuff, they're talking about a kind of species that does not evolve so fast. But anyway, cultures are the same. New cultures will evolve, but a lot can be learned from the old ones. Now I have the word prop here. Here's my prop. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. It's really cool though. And I don't know if you can see. There's a thing here. There's a screw there. There's a channel there. Pretty clearly some kind of a needle for making. My best guess would be some kind of a needle for making really big netting, rope net. I don't know what it is, but it's beautiful. And who knows? And there's a thing there too. Somebody could maybe look at this and just even in the video and say, "Oh, I know what that is." If you do, let me know. But anyway, it's not to find out what it is that I'm showing it to you. It's because that was made by an artisan. You know, I had that list of artists. Artists are needed. Well, within the realm of folk, there is also the term artisan. Artisans. And I need to come back to that maybe and talk a whole lot more about that. But I've got this down here, and to make this not go on too long, I want to say that some of you may remember seeing a Chevy Chase movie called European Vacation, and they go to the Louvre, and they've only got 15 minutes left. It's going to close, and so they go in. Well, you know, they want to see the Louvre in 15 minutes, and you know it's funny because you see all these rapid shots of all these most famous works of art in the Western world. I think in that part, just the Western world, and you just boom, 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 just like a blur, you know, which is where the humor is. It takes a week or more to see everything well in the Louvre. Anyway, I put that there to say versus. In Lisbon, there is a very little known museum called the National Ethnology Museum, Museu Nacional de Etnologia, National Ethnology Museum in Lisbon. And in there, it's not open every day to the general public. You have to make an arrangement to get to see it. But there's an area called the Galeria da Vida Rural, the Gallery of Rural Life. And on my channel, I have that. And I'm going to give it to you as a link. And in a way, it's the same thing. After about 40 years of having lost contact with those artifacts, things like this, I finally found them again after about 45 years because they were moved from the museum where I had first seen them. And it is a fabulous collection. These are not works of art signed by the artists. These are works of art from artisans like this. You know, who knows who made those things. Lots of people could maybe make them, but they made their way into that. Well, for 18 minutes, and I have no music and I don't talk, it's just a slideshow. A lot of the pictures out of focus. I was only there for an hour. I felt very lucky to get there at all, and I was even felt very lucky to be able to take pictures. I eventually asked the director's permission to put them online, and he wasn't sure at first. And I thought, why not? Let the public see these things. And there they are. And I'll give you that link. And before I had found that, I'd found another museum in Lausanne. I'll probably give you that link as well. There's also a museum there, and my friend Shirley filmed it. That you can see that as well. All these artifacts, which are a way of seeing what the folks' solution to the need for a culture. Bye for now.